Okay, and we're back. Thank you so much, Michael, Heather, and Letitia. Don't forget that they're going to be back on the panel after the last keynote of today. So if you have any questions for them or for our final keynote speaker that I'm going to introduce to you in a second, put your questions in the Q&A box here in Zoom. If you just wanted to chat to your colleagues and make the pictures and send them, do it in Teams. But questions for us, please do it in Zoom. Okay, I'm really, really, really excited. I met the last keynote speaker once at a session at a company called Turner. We had a great session. I was so overwhelmed by her knowledge of everything that AI can do, that you can do with innovation. So we decided to ask her to deliver this last keynote of today for the Springer Marketing Festival. She is one of the top 100 women in AI. She's a global storytelling leadership expert. She's an advisor, founder of multiple companies, wrote books, is doing even more. World Economic Forum tech pioneer. I'm already here, also on this map or this card. She worked for companies like Google, Sony, HSBC, educational institutions worldwide, lived all over the globe, but now she's here in the Netherlands. She's going to deliver a keynote called Incorporating AI Tools into Everyday Marketing Practices. Here is Jos Dirkx. Thank you. Welcome here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to be here today. I think we're going to have a great time talking about artificial intelligence, answering any questions that come up as well, and really excited to kick this off. So welcome everybody, and welcome to the future of marketing in the age of AI. I know you've already talked about artificial intelligence a little bit today, but we're going to dive in a bit deeper. So to kick us off, AI is increasingly used to generate, personalize, and optimize marketing content across formats. We see that advanced language models, you've probably already interacted with such a large language model via Perplexity or through Gemini or through OpenAI. We see that they draft blog posts, social media captions, product descriptions, and even video scripts in seconds. Now, this means that brands can scale content fast. I don't need to tell you that. You already know that. We know that companies are generating thousands of SEO optimized products, for example. And we also know that human writers now actually have the opportunity to focus on high value creative work. So I got a little POV for you here. AI actually wrote a blog for you while you were still opening Google Docs. Isn't that kind of how it feels today? And what we also know is that it's not just the writing, it's full blockbuster movies. So AI is at its core transforming content creation. We see that AI systems analyze audience data to personalize content at scale. This means not just tailoring messages to segments, but even going so far as tailoring messages to individual people. You might see that an online retailer uses it to craft dynamic email subject lines, for example, and propose certain products based on behavior. Finally, we see that machine learning suggests content based on preferences and history. One example is Netflix. I know you've heard this example before, but the numbers are staggering. 80% of us watch what is recommended to us via AI. Now, while this is amazing in certain ways, it can also be pretty tricky and pretty challenging when we think about tunnel vision and creativity at large. But if you really want to think about it, you can introduce AI as the new creative intern who happens to also be a genius. Because what we see is that brands are no longer just automating content, but they are actually co-creating with artificial intelligence. And that's where we see generative AI playing a really important role. It's actually becoming a new form of creative storytelling. We see tools like GPT-4, DALL-E, Runway, ML generate copy, visuals, music from just a single prompt. For those of you who have played with some of these tools, and if you have, I'd love to hear from you in the Q&A. But if you've played with some of these tools, it's pretty mind-blowing what they can create. We also know that A/B testing often shows that AI outperforms human written ads and headlines. So where we thought we were great writers, and I've written 3 books, so I actually really enjoy the art of writing. Now A/B testing is proving that AI is actually outwriting human writers. And finally, when we saw JP Morgan Chase use AI copy, they saw an increase in 450% on their email click-throughs. That's insane. It was so impressive that they rehired the company that got them these staggering stats to begin with. On top of creative storytelling, we also have predictive storytelling. And this is where AI generates a narrative based on what it has seen before. Now, while this is an example that you might have heard before, it's pretty impressive when IBM Watson was used by Lexus to script a full TV commercial. Years of data were used, plus emotional insights, to create a 60-second video that had incredible impact on all its viewers. This entire video was scripted, written, and designed by artificial intelligence just by being trained on years and years of ads that had won awards previously. So what the researchers at IBM Watson did was simply feed their machines with scripts that proved to do well over and over again and create an award-winning short based on those scripts. And we know that AI automates media buying in real time. So for those of you that are not on the creative side of marketing, but you're on the media side of marketing, your work is also really changing. We know that programmatic media buying has received a real wake-up call. And why? It is because programmatic advertising is now actually done through instant data-driven decisions. What this means is that we're not using data that has been previously captured in order to serve an ad or place an ad. No, we're actually looking at content that is being generated in real time. We are looking at a decision that a person might make in real time, and that is being analyzed to place an ad. And this kind of precision targeting ensures that ads reach the right audience at the optimal time and price, dramatically improving efficiency and return on investment. The example I want to show you here is Google Smart Bidding, which adjusts in real time based on conversion signals. This has been around for a while, but not everybody is using these kinds of technologies. And not to mention, the technology is getting so much better every single day that we can now really see these placements making sense in real time. Split-second bidding is changing the way in which we market. And as I've mentioned, this is related to predictive storytelling. Here we see that AI is predicting what will work before launch, further enhancing media buying by forecasting outcomes and even guiding budget allocations. So what that means is that prediction is the new power. AI isn't just reacting, it is forecasting. It's analyzing historical data, performance trends, and audience behaviors to recommend where to spend and where not to. A really absolutely key example here is Amazon that used this approach to boost their ROI and had AI-powered ad placements and saw a 35% return on their investment. So we know that AI optimizes creative assets and placement on the fly. It does this at scale, immediately rotating through creative assets, analyzing performance, and focusing on the winners. I'll give you another example where Volkswagen let AI handle their ad buying entirely, removing humans from the equation and cutting hidden costs. They saw a 20% in their dealership sales rise. That is insane. We now are not including humans anymore. We are allowing AI to take over the full process. And what about hypergrowth with hyper-targeting? Harley-Davidson dealership in New York used an AI marketing platform called Albert. It analyzed customer data, identified high-intent microsegments, and optimized spend across channels. The result was staggering. They saw a near 3,000% on more sales leads in just a few months. This was because of the way in which they simply placed their ads. Nothing actually changed in the product. I know I'm throwing all kinds of use cases at you, but I just want you to realize that this technology is at our fingertips today. The final example I want to show you, and I met this person last month in California, it was seriously impressive. What their team had built was a tool that allows you to upload a creative brief. Then that tool that they've designed identifies relevant placement opportunity, dynamically fine-tunes where you should place your content, and places it in that place for you in real time. This is insane. This is a product that's literally reading a creative brief and already uploading everything for you. Now we know that AI can write. We've all used it, many of us have used it to do things like write emails for us. But it can also write kind of flat. So are humans still needed? Well, we know that AI can generate content, but not all content is created equally. Google actually warns against low-quality, mass-produced content, especially and even if written by AI. They have a helpful content update that prioritizes expertise, originality, and real value. And finally, if content feels generic, it simply won't rank, which means that generic AI spam isn't going to cut it. We believe, up until today, that AI must be guided and not left alone. So that allows us to think that AI might not equal full replacement. In fact, an agency tried replacing all their writers with artificial intelligence, and their SEO performance dropped. Why? Because without that human editing, there was a lack of originality, and the content failed to meet Google's quality criteria. So what we've come to believe is that the best results happen when AI and humans collaborate. We know AI will do the draft, we see that people refine it, and finally, the content wins. But that doesn't bring us to search, because search is something we haven't talked about, but it's also evolving with artificial intelligence beyond the traditional results. We know that voice assistants like Alexa and Siri use natural language to respond directly to a query, and Google Search's generative experience and Bing AI no longer show just pages. They summarize, explain, and decide which content matters. So the rules of SEO are changing. It's no longer enough to just rank. In fact, you need to become the source that AI chooses to speak through. Your content needs to be so strong that your content is what's being summarized, explained by these AI tools. That's kind of crazy if you think about it. So what is left for us, right? We know that AI is doing all of this. So where does that leave us? And soon it's going to do even more. We know that that's coming our way. So that leads me to want to ask, what about that one thing that AI can't fully replicate? What part of marketing still belongs to humans and not machines? And that's storytelling. Storytelling can be our strategy. Because while AI can help tell stories, only we bring these stories to life. AI can speed up production, but it cannot create emotional depth or lived meaning. And that is why we must protect and teach those things that makes storytelling human. I think it's really time that we reframe storytelling as a strategic superpower. But here's the twist. It might include teaching storytelling to AI. So if we look at it and we break down how to teach storytelling in the age of AI, well, we know that AI is going to take over execution. So the real advantage that we as marketers and creatives have is what we say and why. And in order to teach this, there are three main things I want you to bear in mind. The first is that we go beyond the brand voice. We teach narrative arcs. We teach emotional resonance. We teach values. And then we look at how we actually train and think like marketeers. We encourage thinking like filmmakers, like authors, like anthropologists, people that are naturally curious about the world around them. And finally, we look at asking deeper questions. What truth is your brand trying to share? What change might it want to see in the world? So I'm buying you a little bit of relief, right? I'm giving you a bit of relief by letting you know that our human skills are still critical in the age of AI. And we want to think that storytelling will always be ours. But here's the twist. Every great story follows a structure. There's a situation, we see some rising action, then we see a problem, we see that climax, and we see the resolution. We know that that is the story's arc. We have actually mastered this arc over centuries. But AI has learned this arc in just a few months. What about emotion? We feel emotion. And while AI can't feel, it is learning emotion because we are training it on the words that we use to express feeling. So if we look at the emotional arc of every great story, we start with our exposition that leads us to our rising action. It gets us to our climax. It gets us to falling action and our denouement. We know this as Freitag's period, and we know that this is a pattern that AI is learning. But only we, as humans, know what this feels like. So let's recap. What has AI been trained to do until now? Well, it's definitely personalizing our ads in real time, placing the right ad in front of a human, not based on their previous behavior, but based on what they're going to do. It automatically sells our products and ideas today. This is happening. We saw the example of Harley Davidson with a 3,000% increase on their product sales. And finally, it generates seamless and, in my opinion, kind of painful experiences across multi-devices in an instant, meaning your phone might be connected to your watch, connected to your iPad, connected to your car, connected to your fridge. To me, that's kind of painful. And it actually makes me feel like I really don't want to be around artificial intelligence anymore. So I want to reframe this entire conversation. And I encourage you to ask two better questions. What is our story? What is our story? And what makes us truly human? To me, that's feeling. This is about feeling, and it's about not being afraid to feel. Because there are a couple things that AI still cannot replicate. The first is lived emotion. I'm not talking about database sentiment. So I'm not talking about AI sounding emotional. I'm not talking about AI mimicking your tone. I'm talking about that really messy, personal, human experience that we have on Earth. And the second thing is cultural context. AI can lack nuance. It doesn't know what's sacred. It doesn't know what should be subtle. It doesn't know what's risky. And finally, creative risk. AI is going to play it safe. And it's quite simple to know why. Algorithmically, it's trained to optimize, not trained to dare. And you are trained to dare. So here's where you, as marketeers and creatives, are sitting in a power seat. Because let's break it down this way. You understand AI and you understand the narrative, but you give the model meaning. It's not the other way around. So if there's a tension that you're feeling right now about AI taking over some of your work, use that tension, lean into it as the creative that you are. Let creative tension push you to create rituals around emotion in your process. You choose to pause, reflect, and feel, and genuinely consider whether a brand story that you're telling is truly the one you should be telling. When I encourage people to explain what a creative process looks like to them, they are unable to do that. In fact, I encourage you right now to think about what a creative process really is. Well, to me, it means getting into my body. And I don't get into my body by being behind a computer. And the second thing is encode your values into your models intentionally. If you are going to use artificial intelligence for writing, for creating, for producing, and for placing, then encode your business values, encode your personal values into your models intentionally. And that's not easy. You will need some technical expertise, but it's worth it in the long run. Curate the data that your AI learns from like it's a sacred library. You don't have to use the same model that everybody else uses. You are in the power seat here. You get to choose what's most important for your model. And that's something that most people underestimate. Finally, stay dangerous creatively. We're all storytellers for a reason. It pushes us to our limits. So how do we do that in the age of AI? But let's face it, right? Because the best storytellers, they are not just ignoring artificial intelligence. They are smart. They know that they have to learn these skills. And it's not just about prompting better either. But what these folks are going to do is they're going to contribute to building emotionally intelligent machines. But they will still know when it's time to stop using the computer and let their own spirit, words, and genius bleed onto the page. So yes, AI will definitely take some of your work away, for sure. But what if we did something like teach it emotion? What if we made that decision that we thought, okay, we want to teach AI emotion? Well, I thought it would be important to show you how, just so that after this talk, you feel a little bit more prepared about everything that I've been sharing with you today. So let's talk about the how. First, there's a truth you need to know, which is that any great emotional programming does not happen in chaos. Mozart didn't write his music while he was chilling on Facebook. And your genius isn't going to break through either if you are constantly distracted. So make that choice to not live in chaos, but to actually give your genius time to flourish. The second thing is you need to understand the foundation of your model. You're going to spend some time understanding what it is that you want your AI to know. It's essentially like a downloading your brain step. You're going to create a brand memory bank for all the AI input. That could be things like your original story. It's raw, unfiltered. What made you do this work? What is the narrative that you are trying to tell? And why you all care? What hurts? What moves you? What makes you excited? We even do voice characteristics using words like urgent, gentle, disruptive, but kind. We look at values and taboos. So what we don't want to do, we don't pretend we're neutral, we don't tell lies, and we look at personal anecdotes, real stories that drive our mission. If we train our AI on something like this, then we actually can see that becomes more of a soul conversation for every output. And then we look at emotion encoding, teaching AI feelings, because you might not want your AI to know not just what you say, but how you feel when you say it. You do this by using terminology that is deeply rooted in linguistics that help express emotion. And you use arc-based prompting by actually telling the AI how it needs to respond. It gives your AI a shape to hold emotion and message in one place. And you look at that story arc that we talked about earlier, because we're talking about telling a story and learning arc patterns. That means tagging emotions in existing content and pairing emotion with structure. Crazy, right? That I'm actually helping you understand what it means to teach a machine emotion. And to be honest with you, I don't necessarily think that everybody has to do this. But for some of you, why training AI on emotion might matter because, well, the world is changing fast. And we will see that more and more brands are using these skills to get their stories out. So remember that AI is not taking your task, it's not taking your talent. It's not about, it can do writing copy, it can design ads, and it can personalize campaigns, but it's not actually going to feel your emotion. It's not going to move someone with a story, and it's not going to be able to replicate your instinct for trust, belief, and connection. That's your magic. And training your AI on emotion lets you keep that magic in the spotlight, not buried under a pile of automation. And your AI will never sound like you unless you teach it to sound like you. So you have to have that voice, that tone, that rhythm. Your brand has a texture. And AI will not understand that by default. So if you start using artificial intelligence, but you don't teach it how you actually are and how you speak, it's still going to be generic, forgettable, and off-brand. So if we want to scale without losing our voice, we want to incorporate emotion in our AI-driven storytelling. And emotion drives conversion. right? So if we want to go for scale, which many of us as marketeers do, we know it isn't just about being human, it's about performance. Emotionally driven campaigns outperform rational ones every single time. And when your stories resonate, people remember, they share, they act. So train your AI to understand those emotional patterns and scale impact, not just with your content, but with what you actually stand for. Remember that emotional fluency is your new creative superpower. Being able to distill your emotions is critical, which is why I talked earlier about setting up creative rituals. You don't need to become a coder, but you do need to become an emotionally intelligent AI director. That means you know how to prompt, it means you know how to guide tone, and it means that you know how to build stories that a machine can carry. Because AI isn't here to replace you yet. It's here to amplify you if you know how to lead it. So why does any of this matter? Well, it matters because your job isn't to make content. Your job is to make people feel something. It is to teach your tools how to help you do that at scale. And that's how you stay irreplaceable. That is how you lead the future of marketing. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Jos.
Absolutely.
I'm going to have a little sip of water before I
I
start
may
talking to
join you. Absolutely.
Oh, I was completely blown away by your keynote. So thank you for that once again. We're gonna have Michael, Heather, and online, and Letitia is gonna come into the studio. Thank you. Hi, Letitia. Welcome here. I got some very interesting questions from the audience already, but before we do that, I just wanted to ask Letitia, Michael, and Heather what stood out the most about this fantastic keynote of Jos. Maybe Heather, would you reflect a little bit on that, and also maybe what strikes you most in well, if you compare it to what we do at Springer Nature?
I mean, I think you're seeing several examples of the marketing team already leveraging the latest and greatest technology. So I'm impressed by Springer Nature marketing. I mean this with all sincerity. Like some of the most cutting edge, forward-thinking, creative, fearless applications of AI, but still in a respectful, human-centered approach. I think it's coming from Springer Nature's marketing team. So I feel like that there was a lot of things that resonated. I don't believe the robots are taking over, so I'm not sure that AI is replacing us. I think I also worry about, how do we keep people excited about marketing? I spent some time in marketing. How do we keep people excited about marketing? How do we keep people studying marketing and getting into it? When we hear things like it, could replace, then I just worry about the next generations, studying these things, and also writing. Also very worried about writing, whether that's going to go away. But I really love the talk, and I was really inspired. And I'm also very inspired by Springer Nature's marketing team.
Thank you, Heather. And Michael, I was thinking of what you said about looking for authors in these hyper niches when we were talking here about the Harley Davidson that went into hyper marketing. Also, this very niche, and that will amplify your journal or your motor, something like that. Can you relate to that, or am I completely wrong?
Absolutely. And I wrote during Joe's talks, I wrote one thing down: the emotionally intelligent AI director. And I think this is exactly the ingredient, because what I described earlier is a very mechanical approach. We use it to understand consumers or customers, to personalize things to customers. But what are these things? And I think in a world where everyone uses AI, every of our competitors uses AI, how do we stand out? And I think this is exactly where the emotional intelligent AI director comes in bringing this creativity. And there's one other thing you mentioned I really, really want to highlight, which is being risky. The AI will give us not the most riskiest choice, and that's down to creativity and emotional intelligence. So that was a great talk and resonated very, very much. That's the other part.
Dare to be creative, dare to be dangerous. Michael and Heather, we're going to talk a little bit more here in the studio, but don't hesitate if you really have a question, just or an extra answer. If you want to elaborate on something, just come into the studio and start chatting with us. So, well, we also have Letitia.
Yeah.
Now here in person.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I really enjoyed your talk and everything that you said. Felt, it really inspired me, and I'm sure it will inspire the team that we work across research marketing and others. And same as Michael, I think that connection with the emotions, that is like the secret sauce that we can bring into the table when using AI, for sure. We see that already with a lot of the work that we've been doing. For example, with the tools that we use, the output of that tools, we still have to analyze that result and evaluate if it is, if it is coherent enough or not, and bring in the emotion into that so that we have really something that we can use. So on the day-to-day operations, that certainly make a difference.
Yeah. I think the thing that we've lost a little bit in this whole AI wave that's been going on for the last year and a half, 2 years, is the ability to sit down with our creative self, the ability to just connect with a piece of paper, the ability to doodle, the ability to jam in a music studio. And these are actually the skills that keep us at peak creativity. These are the skills that allow us to think, wait a second, if I take a picture of this product and I upload it across 9 different large language models and I ask it for immediate feedback, improvement on my product design, oh, right. Okay, now I'm engaging with artificial intelligence, but that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't taken a step back from AI to regroup with my own genius. And it's unfortunate that, when we think about the creative process, or when we think about just the ad placement isn't what it is the most exciting. It is exciting when we get ad placements right, or when we get product design right, or when we get storytelling right, but it's tapping into our ability to really resonate with the truth of a story and then watch that really unfold across multiple devices, multiple experiences, and then eventually into a product design or a content design. And the funny thing is, AI has given us all so much time back, right? There are companies today that the people, that their employees are using AI so well that for 4 hours a day, they have nothing to do.
Well, that's a good thing, though. You said that Volkswagen had this whole campaign and they removed the humans completely, the human part of it. Mm-hmm. What did they do with the humans? Did they get rid of it? That would be bad management, I think.
Hopefully they're sprucing up their EV structure within Volkswagen, because I know that they are working on being better with their electric vehicles, but I don't actually know what they did with their humans. And I think that is also a really, we spoke a little bit about ethics, and I heard it come up earlier, where what do we do, right? And I think there is a certain responsibility of upskilling. And we saw that with Klarna, which is a financial institution. They were one of the first companies that replaced a major proportion of their workforce. And folks were not let go, but they were upskilled to hand tier 2 and tier 3 technical problems instead of the tier 1, I forgot my password type of problem. And I think that is a very good strategy. Allow people to be better versions of themselves. How do we get there? That's for every company to figure out in their own way, but I do think it's a responsibility that we have.
Yeah, and use that human force to do the things that humans can do. Like, what are the most important skills that we still need now we're using AI? I mean, it's bringing the emotion, but that's the stage you have to do. But there are real skills, the on-the-ground skills. Is it prompting? Is it asking questions? Is it what are we supposed to do?
I think one of the most important technical skills that we all need to have today is tech stacking. So understanding which layer of tech tools you need to leverage in order to design a fully functioning 360-degree circle. What I mean is, back in the day when we were going to write a movie script, we would sit down, open a laptop or sit on our typewriter and just start writing. But now we have multiple tools that allow us to get to the end result of one product, one piece of content, one ad, etc. Tech stacking is key because it means you understand all the different tools, approaches, prompting, agents, multi-agent systems, everything working together cohesively. And I really see an opportunity for smart, forward-thinking companies to look at multi-agent systems that where their tech stacking is accurately done, where their processes are optimized by humans first, and then replicated through a multi-agent AI system. I would always say that one of the best things you can do is focus on agents, is focus on understanding your own processes and focusing on optimizing those before you bring them to AI. As just being a fun human being, you might just want to be good at your own rituals, right? So is it a cold shower in the morning? Is it time with your kids? Like, what are you doing to remember what it means to be human? The more we can connect with that, the better our relationship with artificial intelligence becomes.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also have been exploring agents as well. But I would like to also hear from you. What do you see as a successful deployment from agents across other companies, and maybe in the industry, in the publishing industry as well, as we're looking into perhaps bringing that into campaigns, landing pages, and having people using for different use cases. But also want to hear from you as well.
I think that deployment of multi-agent systems effectively is nascent, right? So we are just embarking on this journey where we see it effectively deployed across larger corporates. And when you think about an agent, you really just think about every little artificial intelligence doing its own series of tasks. Obviously, you're probably already doing this, and I'm going to give the example of writing versus video versus sound added on, an additional layer, and then the placement of a story or the placement of a piece of content. So because we are early days, I think where the companies that are really excelling at this, and mind you, Letitia, it's 4% of companies that we actually consider being functional with artificial, 4% of companies that are actually using AI not as oh, we've got a pilot here and we've got a project there, and our writers are doing really well. I'm talking about where AI becomes a foundational layer of the company. That's 4% of companies. So those might be leveraging agent systems in the way that they can actually be leveraged, where they're working together as essentially, I don't like to say this too much because humans and technology are different, but let's pretend a team of people that are working to solve one problem together cohesively. If you want to do that effectively, you start by looking at your processes, understanding what happens in every single task, and then translating those to the right technical tool to take over.
Right.
Maybe a good question for Heather and Michael. Are we in that 4% of the companies? Or are we close to that? Are we moving towards?
I can speak to this very quickly. I think it goes to something that Jos was saying about they really understood their processes, which allowed them to unlock technology. I mean, it's really about the veggies in the gym. If we really understand the data, the processes, there are things that people want to use AI for, but we haven't been measuring. And we're going to have to start to measure. We're going to have to understand what the benchmarks are. We're going to have to understand what is good, what is bad, what errors are allowed, what errors are never allowed. And until you have those kinds of fundamental process conversations, it's difficult to fully unlock the potential. But I think we're having the right conversations at the right levels now about this, and tying the AI strategy and the data strategy and the way that Jos talked about.
You totally agree, Michael?
I agree. And as usual, we're in the 4% because there are good examples why we are in the 4%. And we're not in the 4% because there are also examples where we just basically throw a new technology at an existing process or an existing problem. So I would say they're very good and very bad examples. But I agree with you. It's just don't migrate your old process or problem to AI. It's rethink it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Not good, because then like what we always say is trash in is trash out. All that also is for processes, isn't it? Very good. I'm going to have take a question from the audience, and this one's from Louise. She says, "I'm curious to know what criteria are used to decide that AI often outperforms human written ads and headlines."
Similar to the criteria that we would use to generate any click-through campaign, right? So how many people are reading it? How long are they spending time on it? Is it trashed immediately? Is it read? How are we engaging with that content? What would happen though, and thank you for this great question, it's more about, some of it is through A/B testing, where we're testing generic lines written by humans versus those written by AI, and literally just seeing how folks engage with a piece of content that's written by either or.
Okay, and another one. There's no name on this one, but I'm gonna ask the question anyway. What considerations should we keep in mind when deploying AI agents in the research publishing industry?
That's a really good question, and it requires a longer conversation than just now.
We have some time.
Let's swing back to the core of it all, which is understanding your processes. The first thing you want to do is really get granular about what that looks like to begin with. So it's more than just okay, as a publisher, I would go with what Michael and Heather are kind of alluding to as well, is taking a step back and where is the industry going? What is changing in the world at large around us, and what is the role that we want to play in that? And from there, drilling down on processes, and from there, seeing about multi-agent systems. Multi-agent systems sound super exciting. They have been around, but they have been remarketed and now are more tangible for humans and companies. It used to be something that was more for, a big airline behind the scenes, for example, or a large bank. But now it's becoming more tangible for all of us to understand that we can deploy agents as well. But start small scale. I would even start with, I work with a couple of clients globally where they actually sit down with their different teams. We start building agents within teams first before we start with mass deployment. Sometimes the reason is simply the data isn't organized well enough, right? We've got data in one cloud, we've got it on-prem, we've got it in someone in an Excel spreadsheet, the other person has it in a WhatsApp, Salesforce. So that data job is a good 3 months. And if anything, you feel inspired by getting to that emotionally intelligent AI director part, then the first thing you want to do is let's get clean on that data, let's version it, and then we can start thinking about agents or larger systems.
Yeah, I would just include to that, add to what you said. So looking at starting, let's say start small with the things that we can improve in terms of workflows, and then escalate from that, because it's also very common that people would come with those big ideas that would require several different teams working on them to deploy all of these use cases, and they are not to be shut down. The opposite, it requires more collaboration on that front, but sometimes that pushes people away because it does require a lot of collaboration. And instead, looking into workflows from the teams and things that could be improved, and then going from there is also an option that should be easier to be implemented per se.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also where we see a lot of issues come up is that tech teams might not be communicating with product teams, product might not be communicating with content might not be communicating with HR. So just people talking. People are not good at talking and communicating effectively. And that is really where we see a lot of hiccups as well. If you have a data expert telling you, well, I can't build the system because the data is not good enough, but your technical skills are not good enough to analyze whether or not that data is going to work, that's where that upskilling comes in, right?
And then again, the processes are not good enough, are old-fashioned.
Processes might be old-fashioned, and 100%. Yep.
So data, processes, tech.
Yeah.
There are so many things to think of before you really can deploy all these multiple AI agents and stuff like that.
Yep. I would say always try to go parallel, though. I'm a big fan of doing things, parallel. You can get that big data project going while you work with smaller pilots within teams, etc.
Very good. Just a quick reminder for the people at home or in the office, I think. You can still send your questions in the Q&A box in Zoom. So if you have an interesting question or just a remark, just keep us it'll keep us informed, and we're gonna have it here in the studio as well. Okay, one more over here. What do you think AI should and should not do? Where's the line between AI and human responsibility? Who wants to say something on that?
Is it directed to?
No, it's not directed to anybody.
Just
It's somebody from the audience asked us this. So
I think it's a really hard question. So for me, humans are funny. We tend to pretend there's a fine line between moral. You're either moral or you're not. There's no 98%, 99, those kids are okay to save, but those are not. That's not how morality works. Every child should be saved, right? That's just a blanket example. So having your morals and ethics as a person clear, I think, is number one. We cannot pretend to be able to decide those morals or ethics for a machine. It is a machine. It's not going to, it is separate from our moral and our morals and human ethics. That being said, we want the machine to understand our morals and ethics because they are shaping how we have lived as a society. Is that possible? No, that's not possible, because we know that machine learning and generative AI are all about input being trained, being reformatted, becoming output. So as much as I love this question, and I do love this question, I feel like it's like, you know, a dinner question.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a fantastic
It's almost
question.
dinner, by the way.
Yeah. In the Netherlands, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, this is one of those conversations where there are large language models that have zero toxicity meters that will say whatever you want them to say. They will, they can give you advice that I don't even want to say on this, you know, on this recording. And there are models that are trained with a toxicity meter that are trained not to go beyond certain morals and ethics that we have maybe established, for example, amongst the people in this room today. Unfortunately, not everybody is measured by that same stick, which makes it impossible to apply it to our machines. I'm not saying that's correct, but that is the picture in 2025.
Yeah.
You like that answer, Letitia?
Yeah, I do like that. And also looking into the future, also, where do you think now AI is going? You mentioned about 2025 and having the having that line with it, and also the responsibility. But moving ahead, what do you think is around the corner, 2026 and beyond?
Well, a researcher whose work I really enjoy, his name is Professor Ingo Piepers. He's at the University of Amsterdam. He wrote a book about the social dynamics of war and the thermodynamics of war and social evolution. It's 731 pages. I read about 100 of those. But essentially what Professor Piepers argues is that we are going through a turbulent time, and that time is going to last until 2036. So we can hide behind, no one can hide actually from it because it's on the news every day. The world is going through a global shift. And I think we're going to go through a pretty tough time for the next 3 to 6, 7 years. And that after that, we might be seeing, okay, this is where this massive technology war that we are in right now, including the geopolitical wars that we're currently in, the economic wars that we're facing, maybe in around 6 years, we'll start feeling some relief. And by 2036, we'll have more clarity. And this is based on 400 or 500 years of data of global war systems. So I don't think it's going to be easy. I would say, you know, cuddle up with your partner, find books that you enjoy, spend time with your kids. Like, it's a tough time.
Yeah, everything's coming together.
A little bit, yeah.
It really is a tough time. However, we also have a company, and maybe Michael, question for you. What do you think is going to be is it going to be the evolution of AI inside the Superior Nature company in a couple of years? Where will we be?
Well, that's a glass ball question, right? Certainly hard to predict because currently I think the technology, the pace of developments is just beyond our imagination. However, there are a couple of things on the horizon that become more and more clear. And one I referred to earlier is, I think, a lot of the decision making we do today. And I'm not talking about big multi-million-dollar questions, but all the small and mid-sized decisions. I think AI will help us and make these decisions on our behalf. And this is something we can see already is that AI is actually way better in making all these micro decisions than a human being is. Because in the end, we bring in all our biases. We've been working on this project for such a long time. We invested so much. Let's not kill it. AI will tell us it doesn't work. Just stop it. Invest your time somewhere else. I think this is one area where we see AI helping us tremendously in the near future. And the other thing is, it will help us to scale, and this is not only marketing, this goes beyond, but it will help us to scale a lot of the things we were not able to do beforehand. So I'm not talking about just improving processes and things we have, but this is rather, and I think this is also a bit the missing element here, is the customer perspective. What does a customer expect from us in regards to service, personalization, products, etc. And I think scaling the individualization of products, the services we provide to individuals, is something that we will see evolving very rapidly over the next 12 to 18 months.
I think so as well, but I'm not an AI expert. I'm not a marketing expert. So thank you for that answer, Michael. One more question specifically for marketeers. Where is it again? Okay. Because we're in this whole AI time evolving rapidly. We marketeers, well, all the marketeers that are watching right now, they're just mastered ChatGPT or a couple of other AI tools, and then they have to stop doing that, go to the next one. How can they keep up with all this fast pace?
So very practically speaking, I think it's safe to say that you can't. And maybe the question isn't, how do I keep up with everything that's changing, but how do I keep up with what changes matter most to me? What do I want to be known for? What do I want to be good at? I would then recommend looking at things like tech stacking, understanding the combination of different tools. Try not to take it too seriously because it is changing really fast, and just have fun with it. Play, read for 15 to 20 minutes every single day about artificial intelligence. It's 15 minutes on the bus or on, listen to a podcast. But those are the ways in which you can keep upskilling yourself. Try not to put too much pressure because no one knows everything that's going on every single day except AI. AI knows it maybe about itself, but the rest of us are going to be always maybe a step behind.
Very good. Letitia?
Yeah, I would.
Are you using that?
Definitely, and I would also second that as, understanding the tools that we have in place across the company that we are using for multiple different use cases, but also the guidelines, the policies, just knowing them or at least, know how to experiment using those tools to play safe, but going ahead, trying and understanding what they're capable of, and as Jos said, seeing what works, what doesn't, moving on. There's you cannot run away. You don't need to be scared, but play it safe, and it should be fine.
Very good. Heather, unfortunately, you're leaving us at the end of the month. Yeah, so sad. However, maybe in a year or 5, you're going to come back to Springer Nature, maybe in a whole new role. I don't know. What would you like to see that has happened in those 5 years?
Yeah, I think we're seeing the right signals now. I mean, I remember when I joined, a year and a half ago, I was tasked with Thomas Sutherland to develop an AI strategy, and I was like, well, this seems crazy. Shouldn't this follow the business strategy, which then leads to a experience strategy and product strategy, which leads to a data strategy, which then might lead to a technology strategy. So a year and a half later, the bringing in of Saskia in the CDO role in Springer Nature now allows this unification across experiences, looking at not these sort of point solutions that Michael was talking about, like where people have sort of like pet projects that they bring to life, but now we're talking about this holistic journey. I think that this is really going to be transformational. I think this is just a massive move. I think we'll start to think about data a bit differently. I think you'll see some acquisitions over the next couple of years, if I had to predict. I think that's a combination of things. I think it's going to be, how do we get connected to customers in different points of the ecosystem at different stages of their researcher life, as an example. So I think we'll see more acquisitions. But I think, in a few years' time, you'll start to see a much more connected user experience, much more connected data structure. And then you'll start to see us entering that 4%. We're really at the precipice of being able to get there. But yeah, I would say that we're getting all the right ingredients as far as I can see. And I'm really excited about what's going to happen next.
Thank you. And any of the other panelists, is there any final remarks, something that our audience really should know when they're leaving, well, today, tonight, in whatever time zone we are?
I would say play around with it, have fun with it, and ask questions. The world is changing. Don't be afraid to be curious. That's what makes us uniquely human.
Absolutely, and reach out to the teams, share your ideas, talk, and there are people that can help you build that together and test those ideas.
And
Very
don't
good.
do AI for the sake of AI, but always put yourself in the shoes of the customers. What would they expect, and how do we make their lives better?
Well, I love that one as well. Thank you. Thank you, Jos,
Thank you.
Letitia, Michael, and Heather for this great panel discussion, for your keynote as well, Jos.